Good afternoon. This is Irfan, and I'm coming here to help you build a project, Unity 3D project, virtual reality. And can start from the beginning, but I wanted to help create a sample project for you called Star Wars Mock for all you Star Wars fans. So to begin, what we want to do is we want to download the Unity Hub. So by doing that, you need to click Get Started. We go to unity.com and click Get Started. So we get to the Unity store, we will find tabs for individual, teams, and industrial and enterprise. We should click the individual, and you have three different options: student, personal, and Unity Learn. Personal should be good enough for our purpose here. It is free, so we can click Get Started. So here we can download the Unity Hub by clicking this download for Windows. And after doing this, you should come out with an application similar to this. So as soon as we get up Unity Hub installed and set up, you will see a screen similar to this. And you have 4 tabs along the left hand side. So we want to make sure we install the correct Unity version. So we need to go to Install. We can choose one of these editors that's already existing, 2021 or 2020, or we can look for the most latest. So we can do that by clicking on Install Editor. So here it says the recommended version is 2020.3.30 F1. So all I have to do is install. Click Install. But since we already have these in here, I want to go ahead and continue using 2020.3.24 F1. So now, since we have the correct Unity install, what we want to do is create a project. So to do that, we need to switch to Projects tab and then click New Project. Here, if we go to Core, we want to make, I know it shows here VR, but it's more practical if you pick 3D Core. It will help a lot. So if you make sure you click on 3D Core, and on the right hand side you have to name it. So since we're making a Star Wars program, let us call this Star Wars Mock. And I'm going to install it at this site. We're going to click Create Project. So once this is up and running, we can go ahead and close this out. So let's go ahead and create a new scene by right clicking in the project panel to create and scene. Let's call this Star Wars scene. Click enter. If you want to double click that, make sure that scene's showing up. So if that's successful, it will show up here, Star Wars scene, as well as here. The next step that we want to do is make sure that whenever we do a VR project, we want to try to make it work for an Android. So currently it's set for PC, Mac, and Linux standalone. So to change that, we need to go to Edit, we go to File and Build Settings. First of all, we want to, here's your build settings, we want to include this scene, current scene that we just created, so next time we build. So we can do that by clicking Add Open Scene. And there you go, it shows up there, it's index of 0. Now currently it's set for PC, Mac, and Linux standalone using this Unity symbol. So if we click on Android, and then down here on the bottom right, you should see a tab button for Switch Platform. So you want to do this first because it will take longer the more stuff you add into your scene, because it's converting to an Android compatible application. Okay, as you can see, it already switched to Android and the Unity symbol is connected there. So for right now, we can go ahead and close this out. And you can see here, we have Star Wars scene and it's Android. The next thing we want to do is make sure we have all the correct libraries. So to do that, we have to go into the package manager. So go to Windows and Package Manager. We need all the libraries that are needed to set up our virtual reality arena environment. So currently, as soon as it opens, you go to Package, it shows up Package in Project. We don't want the current project, we want to look through the Unity registry. So we click this tab and hit Unity Registry. Here, these are all the libraries that Unity currently has available for us, but there are certain ones that are required. One of those examples is the input system. So we need the input system because the old input system for controlling the buttons and the joysticks and the controls, everything was being obsolete. So it's being replaced by this new system, so we need to install it. So when we select input system, we select install. So let that run. And once we do that, there's a warning that says that the new input system will replace the old one. This project is using a new input system package, but the native platform backends for the new input system are not enabled in the player settings. This means that no input from native devices will come through. Do you want to enable the backends? So we would need to click yes. it will go ahead and restart the whole system. Okay, so it opened up again. So if we scroll down back, see input system, it has a check mark. That means it has been installed. The other libraries that we require is we can either install the Oculus XR plugin or OpenXR plugin. The difference is that if you're doing specifically only Oculus devices, then you only install Oculus XR plugin. But if you want to use a variety of headsets, virtual reality headsets, including the Oculus, you go OpenXR. But for our purpose, we're working on the Oculus Quest 2, so let's go ahead and just install that. Okay, once we got the Oculus XR plugin set up, we also need, we scroll down, XR Interaction Toolkit. So XR Toolkit, Interaction Toolkit, allows you to interact in virtual reality with objects. So we require that. So let's go ahead and install that one. Okay, then there's a warning pop-up that says that in order to use the interaction layer mask and for the interaction toolkit, we need to update it. So let's go ahead and click I made a backup. So go ahead. Okay, that has been installed. The final thing that we need is the XR plugin management, but it shows that there's a check mark, so it's already installed because previously we already installed Oculus XR plugin. So that belongs under this heading. So if you click that triangle, we can actually find out this is our currently installed 4.20. We can update to the current one, which is 4.21. So let's go ahead and update it. Click yes. So now that all the libraries that we need to create a virtual reality program has been installed, we just need to go ahead, close this out, and return back to Unity. Okay. Now we have to continue the setup by, we need to create the player preferences. So how the build is going to happen. So to do that, we can click edit. First, let us actually set up our the program, the Visual Studio that we're going to use. So if you already installed previously the Visual Studio, it would show up here. External tools. Under external tools, you'll find external script editor, and you can select this combo box and make sure that your installed Visual Studio Community 2019 works. So this is important if you want to make sure that all the files are opening in the same IDE. So we select that, and then we can close that. So anytime we create a script, we can make sure that the Visual Studio Community 2019 opens up. Okay, like I said, now we need to change project settings. So under project settings, there's a couple of things we need to fix here and change. So first off, we go to the player tab. So player tab, we need to adjust some settings. So for example, the company name. So you can create a company name. So in my case, it will be Triton Games. And the product name is the application that we're building, Star Wars Mock. And we need to start with a version of 0.1. You can go ahead and create a default icon or default cursor if you like, but the important part is down here. So what we want to do is, since we're building for Android, we want to make sure the Android tab is selected here. And here, if we scroll down to other settings, we have rendering color space. So for rendering color space, Gamma does not work for virtual reality. So we need to switch it to linear. So if we click this combo box, we'll find linear. So then there's a message pop up that says change color space, maybe a significant amount of time. So we want to change to linear. So let's click that. And here in the graphics API, a linear color space works mainly for OpenGL ES3. So we can get rid of everything else except for OpenGL ES3. So let's click that, and then we can hit the minus sign. Okay, that's set up. We scroll down here, multi-thread rendering. Scroll down, scroll down. And down here, you can override the default package name, or you can keep it the same as what was mentioned above. I'm going to go ahead and leave it that way. So once this is actually published, if it were to be published, it would come up under this name. The version number, I'm going to keep it 0.1. The bundle version code, I'm going to keep it to 1. But the minimum API level, we want to change it to actually a Marshmallow. Android 6.0 Marshmallow API level 23. It's the minimum that's required to do a virtual reality project. And then target API level is the highest. Here also you can change this active input handling. So if you want to go back to the old input manager, you can, but we went ahead, or both, but we went ahead and replaced the old one with the new one. So we want to make sure that this is checked. And then that's all we need to change in this tab. But another thing that we do need to change, so XR Interaction Toolkit, that's been installed. We don't need to really worry about this setting, but here in the XR Plugin Management, which we installed in the Package Manager, we have, again, two tabs. We have the PC and we have the Android. So we want to make sure we switch to the Android tab, and then you can keep this set up here, checked, initialize XR on startup. But there's 3 plugin providers. So we're not working with ARCore, we're not working in Unity Mock HMD, but we are working with Oculus devices. So we want to make sure we have that checked for an Android setup. Now once that is set up, that's going to create the ability for us to work with the Oculus devices and the libraries. So Oculus will show up down here. If we click that, we have a list of all these other options here, but the main one is you want to make sure that the target devices have been selected, either Quest or Quest 2. So we might as well just go ahead and leave it because we're working with Quest devices anyways. So here we've finished setting up the project settings. So we can go ahead and X this out. Hello there, and welcome back to the virtual reality tutorial for the Star Wars scene. We just last left off creating the environment, downloading the necessary libraries. So next step is to download all the necessary assets that we need to make this work properly. So in your PowerPoint instructions, I have listed a few important assets that I think might be useful for you. First off is the VR tools. So if we click that, this will bring me to the Unity Learn website, where it teaches you the basics of how to do virtual reality. But if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see in the materials say create with VR 2020 LTS.zip. This enables us to create our environment, add furniture, add hands to our controllers. So we would need to download this. I've already downloaded this file, so all I have to do is import it. So for me, okay, so let us go ahead and download this, create with VR 2020 LTS. And then we can open the file. And let's extract this somewhere. Put on my desktop. Create with VR 2020. So let's go ahead and extract all this. So we want to go ahead and import this in Unity. So to do that, you can either drag and drop into the Unity editor, or we could do assets, import new asset, and then find create with VR 2020. It's our folder. Desktop here. Let's go ahead and import. So let us go ahead and drag and drop this create with VR 2020 inside our assets folder. Go ahead, drag and drop it to assets folder. Let's close this out. You see it's importing the packages for us. It would take a second to import all the packages. So as you can see, it created the Create with VR project, and so here you get VR room project folder. Let's double click and see what we have. So we have assets, packages, project settings. So if we click assets and then go to course library, we get all sorts of folders here, including prefabs. So let's see what the prefabs hold. So for our use, if we want to create hands for our controllers, we can go to VR and then hands. So we have different choices, but we will do this later after we've set up our camera and stuff like that. So the next thing that we need to set up. On the list is we need to have a lightsaber. So if we click this Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber, so this is one asset that's not found in the asset store, but you can still download it and use it for your purpose. But if you download and install from other than the asset store, then you most likely would have to do its own animation. You might have to model it. You might have to do other things. Whereas an asset store, if you're not too comfortable with working with models, I would suggest downloading from there. But I downloaded this package here from Turbo Squid. It's very valid. They have good merchandise, and it's a free download. So this is Obi-Wan Kenobi Saber 3D by Anthony Yanez. So I have downloaded this project. You have to create an account to download, and you download the lightsaber. And particularly you want to make sure that the format has to be an FBX, and you might have to download as well a 3D modeling program, or it won't show up in Unity. So if it says FBX, you can get Blender from blender.org or Google search it and you can download it. You don't need it, but to be able to view it in Unity, you still have to use it. So we want to bring that in to our Unity package. So let us go to my download folders. So let us go ahead and download this package. Okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi Saber. We want Obi-Wan lightsaber.fbx. Let's click that. And we want to open the file. Okay, Obi-Wan FBX. So before we bring that in, let us create a folder within Unity. Clicking this plus sign, create a folder, and let's call this models. So we can go inside here and we can import that into our project. So as you can see here, we imported the Obi-Wan Kenobi light sword, and it has all its materials and its parts, but there is no color to it. You have to apply that. There's no animations or anything like that. So you have to do that on your own, or just bring it into the scene just so you know what it looks like. You might have to also change the size to make it look nice. But for right now, let me go ahead and delete it. We don't need to worry about that at the moment. Let's continue getting the other parts. Next thing is, if we wanted to create in one hand, we can create lightning bolt effects to simulate the force that some of the characters in Star Wars uses with lightning bolts. This, in fact, is and belongs to a person who put his product in the asset store. So let's go jump to there. So here we already I already purchased it. It is for free. It's from Digital Ruby, Jeff Johnson. So you can see a simulation. We just have to change its effects so that it will look more like that you see on Star Wars movies. So after it's been downloaded, you just need to open in Unity, and then you can always check this. Always allows asset stores to be associated with this app. So let's click open, and it shows up in our package manager under my assets, lightning bolt effect for Unity. So now we need to download this. So we can click here. To install it. Download it. And then import it. So you want pretty much all of these, so go ahead, click import. Okay, so that is finished installing, so we can also see that here, lightning bolt. And the last asset that we would need is sideloading VR. Okay, this is important particularly because once you build, this should be loaded and installed on your computer. So once this is loaded, you are able to build to your computer, and then this allows you to transfer that build, the APK file, to your headset, so you can then view it. So we would need to download this. So if we go here, we scroll down. So for the APK side loader, we from HeadJack, this tool again allows you to drag and drop your APK file. So you would have to build it in Unity, store it somewhere, and then drag and drop it into this program to make it go onto your headset. So you can learn more about it here, how to sideload APK, but we want to go ahead and download it for Mac OS and Windows. So here they ask you to register with your first name and email. So email, if we click this, they'll send the link for you to download the package, the sideloader. It looks similar to this, where in this page you would drag and drop your APK file over here in this box, and then it will tell you here whether it's been installed or not. and then you're ready to test out your application. So I have this application already installed on my Windows. It came in a zip file, so I can zip it, extract all, and again, let's put this on the desktop. Create a new folder. I will call this Side Loader VR. Select the folder. Extract. So we would need to open this application up at the time when we are ready to export our file. So for right now, let's go ahead and close this out. We have completed installing all the necessary assets that we need for the project. Let's go ahead and minimize this down. And now, so let's go ahead and save this. And now we want to start actually building our scene here. So let us start by creating a plane. So we want for us to have our game arena. So let's go to Game Object in Windows, and then 3D Object, and let's click Plane. So you have a plane here. You can hold out and your left mouse button and tilt the scene, scoot in a little bit. And now this main camera that we show up here is not enough to do our virtual reality application. So what we need to do is add one that's capable for XR. So to do that, let us click this plus button. If we go down here, XR. So this XR menu with all these options would show up after you've installed the XR toolkit and the Oculus and the interaction toolkit. So what we want here is a XR origin action based. So action based means it depends on events. So whenever you press a button, something will fire, something will happen. Or if you move the controller in a direction, you would have to do that. So let's go ahead and add an XR origin. And if we click on it, and the triangle, you will see there's a camera offset. And you click further, you will see it already has a camera included, along with a left-hand controller and a right-hand controller. So on these left-hand and right-hand controller is where we would build our controllers and include our hands. So since we already have a main camera here, we don't need the first one. The first one has already disappeared as soon as we added this XR origin. And it also included this XR Interaction Manager. So if we click that, so we have this component here, XR Interaction Manager. Let's save it again. So our camera is currently facing the positive Z direction. So let us actually move this back so we have the plane in view. Okay, so right about there, so Control S. Now, the left-hand controller comes with an XR controller. So all the necessary input reactions like position action, rotation, activate, UI press. So this deals with whenever you are handling UI. So you can have one hand control just the UI and the other one grabbing an object, which is, so if we further go down here, we would see a model section. So model prefab. So this is where we would place our hand game objects to make it look real. So if we want to do that, we can go and hold that in position, go to create VR, room project, we go back to where we saw the hands, acids, course library, prefabs, and VR, and then we go to hands. So let's say we want to have blue hands. So there's one for the left and one for the right. So if we click back on the left hand controller, we can either drag and drop this into the appropriate field, or we can click this button, circle button, to select these. But it's a little bit easier if we drag and drop it. So let's go ahead and do that. So left with the left model prefab, and then do the same for the right hand controller. So now, if we were to zoom in on this, let us actually raise this a little bit higher. Okay, let's zoom in closer, and then let's hit play. Let's see if the hands show up. So we go to the scene, tab, see, camera might be too close. A little bit back. Let's hit play again. Hello, welcome again. So let us continue. Last time we left off by creating the ants and attaching it to our XR origin, the left hand and right hand controllers. This is what it would look like if it's already attached. Let me hit play. So you have your right hand and left hand. As you can see, coming from each hand is a red line. So this is what we use to interact with our objects in the real world. in the virtual reality world. Those can all be manipulated and changed using, if you go down to each one, to left hand controller or right hand controller, you get these components. Line render, and you can change the width of it. Corner vertex, you can change the color, and all these other different things. You can even change what they actually interact with. So here we have a default, which is everything, or you can create a layer where you can only, on the left hand side, you can have it interact with just UI, and the right hand side you can only react with other objects. So you can make different changes to these lines. You can change the width and all that stuff. Here's where you can change the color. So if there is something that it finds that is valid, you can change the color here. Valid color gradient. So this is when it finds something that it can interact with. This red line would turn white. If it has not found anything, you can change this gradient to the invalid color gradient to a red color. So currently it's red color, so it doesn't find anything. You can change the line length as well. So let us continue on. So now that we have the hand set up, the next step is to work on the lightsaber. So last time, remember, we transferred we downloaded from that website I mentioned before, and we brought it into our assets model folder here, Obi-Wan lightsaber, but we did not do anything with it yet. So we let us bring it onto the scene. Put it right there. So as you can see, I dropped it into the scene, and it's pretty large for our scene. So we need to do some tweaking here to make it look more realistic. So this little beam here is the actual light beam that will do the fighting. So let us try to change some of this stuff. First of all, we want to change the size of this lightsaber in the hole. So let's see, it's set to scale 1:1:1. So let us do something like 0.3, 0.3, and 0.3. So it's currently still kind of big for a lightsaber. Let's go one more level. 0.1, 0.1, and then 0.1. There. Now it's a little bit more visible, and you would be able to see it a lot better. If we were to go to the game, so let us move sword into position. So our lightsaber now has no color or anything to it. So we want to, and it's blending in with our floor here. So we would want to change this material here. So what we want to do is, if we select Obi-Wan lightsaber, we want to look for these pieces here. So we have to click down here, and then you get the Obi-Wan blade. So this one is for the blade. We can pick a color for that to change. So that we can do later when we actually animate it. Okay, the Obi-Wan lightsaber. So we need to look for the mesh render. Mesh render will allow the colors or the materials to be added on. So right now all of these is set to default, so I can change these by clicking. There's 5 materials that make up this handle here. So let us change each one. So element 0 is set to default. So we can click that circle, pick a different material. Let's say I want something in black. So we have black. Now it's showing purple on the screen because we need to fix something. See, if you scroll down here, the black material, the shader says it's hidden internal error shader. So to fix this, you just click here and scroll down to standard. Standard specular if you want it to reflect off light. So black is set there. Now we need to actually change the albedo color to black. And there you have it. Albedo is the main color that shows up. Specular is what color you want to shine. Okay, so we have so element 1. So let's change this to a different color. Let's find let's look for a bluish color. So blue again is showing blue is showing still an error if you scroll down there, internal. So let us also change that to specular. The blue shows up there. And we continue on and finishing these other materials. Let's do this one. Let's get some red in here. You can scroll down here, or you can also type it up. Red. So you're going to get red. Again, this turned purple, so that means that we need to change this to standard specular. And there you have it. So now that we set up the handle, the hilt for Obi-Wan Kenobi's sword, this you can change this to any color you like, any combination. Does not really matter, but I chose to have a red and black item to it. So now if I hit play, I should be able to see this a little bit more better in front of the camera. See where's the camera. Make sure it is in the camera. So just actually rotate it 90 degrees so it stands up. Change the X position. Okay, so here's the camera. You can see it's all colored, but the scale is still kind of big. So another way we can do it is we can go to our tools, and then the fourth one from the left is your scale tool. So if we go back to the scene, you get something like this, where you have all the axes, the red, green, and blue. So if we wanted to change all three axes at the same time, we can pull this gray one, so it shrinks. And now we can see in game view, see if it shows up. So now that we got the lightsaber colored the way we wanted and sized appropriately, the next step would be to start animating, so this blade will go in and out and make the noise that it's required. You turn on and off a lightsaber. So let us go ahead and do that. So if I click the lightsaber and minimize some of this stuff, the main thing that we need to make this animate is we do need an animator component. So if I click on the root of it, Obi-Wan lightsaber, and I hit add component, I would need to type in animator. So animator allows the Unity program to control when and how that this blade will go in and out. So we need to create some animation. So for us to do that, let's go ahead and create in our assets folder. Let's create another folder. Let's call it animation. Now, particularly, we want to animate this Obi-Wan blade. So, if I click that, you go to animation, open up animation folder, click Obi-Wan blade, then I can create the animation by opening up the animation. So if I click window and go to animation and go to animation, I get this panel here. So let me go ahead and dock this over here on this side. So I want to create an animation using this. Dock it appropriately. Okay. Okay, so now that we docked it away nice and safely, with this selected, if we go Obi-Wan Blade, it will say here in the animation tab, to begin animating Obi-Wan Blade, click an animation clip. Create an animation clip. So let's go ahead and do that. And in our animation folder, you want to create a name. Let's call it Blade Off. So I click save. So now I have a timeline for me to create the animation. So if I hit add property, then I get all the properties that can be animated. So, but we want to click the Obi-Wan Blade and then go to transform, and we want actually there's different properties, the position, rotation, scale. Since we want this to shrink and enlarge when turned on, we want to only handle the scale. So let's hit plus. So everything we're changing about this blade is only the scale. So we'll shrink and enlarge. So if I hit this triangle, see the timeline goes from 0 to 1. So what I can do is, in this current position, it's already on. But we want it off, so this blade has to shrink all the way. So let us go ahead and record this animation by hitting this. Everything will turn red here. And we want to go, let's see, about 1 minute. So 1 minute, we would like to change the scale. So to change the scale, I believe it's going to be the z-axis. So if I click in this box, I can actually drag it so it goes down. Drag it to the left, so you don't see it anymore. So all the way the z-axis, because this is the z-axis, so that's 0. So if I stop the recording and then I start playing it from 0, if I hit play, I'll see a preview of it going back. So you can see the blade is retracting. So if I hit pause, I can make it either faster or slower by changing the length of time. So if I want this transaction to happen for 1 second, then this animation, when it goes to 0, the z-axis, can go this long. Otherwise, I can shrink. I can say maybe half of that, so about 0.30. So it'll be faster retraction. But let's just, for simplicity, keep it at that point. So let us remember that. So that's at 0. Now we want to create a new animation for it to turn on. So let us click this triangle again, and we're going to create a new clip again, and let us call this Blade On animation. So again, we need to add the property of scale. So we want the Obi-Wan Blade. We go to transform, and we want only the scale again. Only this time, we want to start at 0 with scale Z at 0. So let us record that. And if we hit this to record the fraction. So we can actually also change the number input here. We remember it went all the way down when it was 0. So let's go ahead and type 0. So let's remember that number 1.146. Let's copy that actually. Copy that. And then change this value to 0. We're copying that because 1 minute, 1 second later, we want that same length. So let's go to 1 second. And we have that full length. So if we hit exit from recording, we will see that it will now come out. So let's go ahead and play. It's doing the opposite. Perfect. So we got our simple animation. Now, let's go ahead and save this. And if I go, so we don't need this animation tab anymore. So let's go ahead and click. Just right click and hit close tab. And if we go back to the animation folder that we created, so here you see the blade off animation. We have the blade on, and we have the controller. So this is what controls when we turn it on and when we turn it off. So, but first, before we do that, if I click each one, you notice that this has a loop time. So we don't want this to repeat the whole time, every time, back and forth, back and forth. So let us go ahead and shut that off. It will continuous loop. We don't want that. We only want it to turn off when we hit the button. So let's shut that off. And the same thing goes for blade on. We don't want it to loop every time and keep turning on. So let's shut that off. So I want to be able to have this set up in our animator. So if we double click here, an animator window pops up. So I have here, so this window is the animator window. It's run by a system called Mecanim. So Mecanim handles all of the Unity's animations that you've created. So we have an entry. So as soon as the animation starts, it's going to come out from here. And then it will go to the first block here that is in orange. Right after it starts animating, it goes to the first block. So you normally want this to be off because you haven't had the chance to turn it on yet. So we're assuming that the blade is off. So we want to keep this as primary as soon as the animation starts. So when blade is on, so we need to have arrows to connect these two animations so we can switch back and forth. So we can right click here and make a transition. So we drag this arrow to the blade on, and then from blade on back to blade off. So this is going to be run on parameters. So depending on what that parameter is, if it approves the parameter, it will turn on. If it does not approve of the parameters, then it will go back to off. So let us create those parameters to make this work. So if we go over here on the left hand side, we have layers and parameters. So if we click parameters, we want to create one. So let's hit the plus. So we have different options here. We have float, we have int, we have bool, we have trigger. So float depends on a number. We don't have any float values that we can use, so that's not going to help us. We don't have any int values. like lives or stuff like that. We could use a bool, but let me go ahead and explain to you what the trigger is. Trigger is it will activate and then deactivate at the same time. So for example, if you want to fire a bullet, you can have a trigger. So bullet will do one shot and then another and then go back to its normal state immediately. What we want is a bool to keep it on the whole time until we shut it off. So let's name this bool is on. So by default, it's on is false. So we want to set that parameters here. So if we click on these arrows, then we have on the right hand side, this is all the properties and transitions. So going from blade on to blade off, that's what this arrow represents. So we don't want an exit time. We can check that off. And we have conditions. So if we want to use this parameter as a condition, so if I click here, add a new condition, it says is on, because this is the only parameter that we have currently. So we use this. So here we tell it if it's going to be true or false. But we're going from a blade on to blade off, so we want this transition to be false. So whenever is on is false, it will revert back to blade off. So we have to do the same thing for the other transition. So if we click this one, and then we take out the exit time, we want to create another transition, but this time we want is on to be true. So if it's on, it will expand. If it is false, it will retract and shut off. So now that we have that set up for us, we can go out of the animator, close tab, and we want to attach this. Make sure that it's attached to our animator. So if you go back to Obi-Wan lightsaber, we have Obi-Wan lightsaber, and it is attached. So that animator window that we have is now connected to our blade. So all we need to do now is just write code to make it work. So next thing we will want to do is we want to be able to have it grab the sword using the force. So obviously we don't have a force, we have to use these lines. So whenever it interacts with the handle, it will, if we press a button, it will grab the object for us. So the way to do that is in the XR world, we need to add another component to this. And that component is called, go to add component, we go to XR grabbable, grab interactable. So anything that is grabbable, we would have to attach this kind of component, XR grab interactable. So it found the interaction manager, which is already set up here, and we want the default layer to be there, but so in the XR grab interactable, there's many many things that you can change here, but one of the most important ones is attach transform. So right now it's set to none because we need to set it. So if we don't set it, then what happens is wherever our line touches the object that we want to grab, basically, and then we hit the button, basically that's where it wants to attach. That's where you'll grab it. So that means you'll be touching the hand to the blade, which does not make sense. So you want to guarantee that the position's always consistent every time you grab the lightsaber. So to fix that, so we want to create a spot. So if I zoom in here a little bit on the lightsaber, so if we want to grab it around the right spot, so if we click here to lightsaber, and then we want to is set a spot somewhere near where these two buttons are, because that's where the power on and power off, that's most likely where a Jedi would hold the lightsaber. So we want to create an empty game object somewhere there. So if we right click and create empty, let's call this game object hold spot. So this spot will be always there for us when we want to grab the object, and that's where it will be attached. So let's move it somewhere near those two buttons. Let's change the direction. So the z-axis is facing forward. That's going to be a 180. Now we want to associate that whole spot that we just created with the attached transform that we have here. So let us go ahead and drag the spot to attach form. So every time the hands grab the object, it will always grab at that hold spot. So let's go ahead and save this project. Hi, welcome back. This is Irfan again. Now that we've created the lightsaber, we can now go ahead and start working on programming it to work for our Oculus Quest controllers. So let us go ahead and get that started. So now to do this and to work with the Oculus Quest controllers too, we have to use the new input system. So to use the new input system, what we need to do is create a new input asset. So we can do that. We can do that by right-clicking in an empty spot on assets. Go to create, and then down at the bottom says input actions. So input action is where we're going to control all the controller buttons and what they do. So let us go ahead and name this as Lightsaber Controls. Okay, so now that we have that done, we can go ahead and click it. Open it up. So here we have different sections for us to do. The first thing that we want to do is make sure we click up here on the right hand side, autosave. So we don't have to worry about saving it each time. We don't need to worry about the control scheme, and we set this for all devices. But we do need to create an action map. So the action map controls everything that we want. It lays it out for us so we can just create each action map for, let's say, each of the different controllers, or a controller and a gamepad. So let us go ahead and add a new action map and say this is for lightsaber. Because lightsaber, we want to name it that way because that's what we're going to use the Oculus remote for. So now that opens up the action section for us. So we want to create a new action, and our action that we want to create is to toggle on and off the lightsaber by a push of the button. So let's go ahead and change the name of this new action to toggle. So we want to turn on and off the action. If we go and click down here, we have a binding. That's where we're going to map each of the controller's buttons to this action, toggle. So let us go ahead and do that. Let's click no binding. If we click no binding, then on the right hand side we have the binding properties. So we want to go ahead and bind that to something. So binding path is where we're going to actually define which button we're going to use when we trigger this toggle button. So if you take a look at, let's say we want to control the lightsaber using our right controller. So when we notice that there's an A and B button on the controller, so we can use one of those to trigger on and off the button, the lightsaber. So let us try to find that here. So we click here. If our Oculus Quest is connected, then we would be able to click this listen button and it will automatically find our button that we want to use. So let's try that. Okay, so let us try that again. If that does not work, the listen button, then you would have to do it manually. So to that, let us go ahead. These are all the controllers, the devices that can interact with the VR headset. So we want to select the XR controller, and then here this is for general XR controllers, but since we have specifically the Oculus Touch controller, we can select here. And then we want to use the right hand. So to control the lightsaber. So let's click right hand, and then we want to hit select primary button, because that primary button is considered the A button on the right hand side. So we click that. Okay, now that we have that set up, so primary button, so whenever we push the A button, it will set off this toggle action. It's confirmed here. Interaction, so this is how it's going to be interacted. So if we hit plus, we have different options. So you can have it hold, you can have multi-tap, you can do press, you can do slow tap, you can do a regular tap. So let us do just a regular tap. Okay, so now that we have that set up, we can now start actually doing some scripting. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead for right now, close it. So now that we have that set up, we want to create a script. The script is what will control all these actions. Okay, so now that now we are ready to create, now that we created our action map, what we need to do is create a script that works with alongside this. So let us go ahead and in the assets we can create a new folder. Let's call it scripts. And then if we go inside here, let's go ahead and click this plus button. Oops, we don't want that. Delete it. Click that, and we do want a C# script. So let's call this lightsaber. And let's go ahead and attach it to this lightsaber, because that's what we want. We want this script to control this lightsaber. So we click here and drag and drop it to the name lightsaber. You'll also notice over here that it is attached. Lightsaber, lightsaber. Okay, now we have to go ahead and open it. So let's go ahead and open it. By double clicking here. Open. We're opening it up in Visual Studio. Let's give it a few minutes. Okay, so this is our template for creating a script. So here's our class name, lightsaber. It's mono behavior. We have the start method and update method. So first of all, we need to, up here is all of our libraries that makes the script work. So we do need one extra using statement, so that will be using Unity engine dot input system. So this allows us to access all the input system programs in there. So let's save this. And we also need, so if we go inside class, we do need a few things from here. We need to access the animator for the lightsaber. So we can do public animator lightsaber anim. So through this, we're calling it public because through the inspector we can drag and drop it, and then it will recognize that animator component. Okay, we also need to include in this, we also need sound. So when the lightsaber goes on and off, public audio source is another component that's required to play any video or any audio. And we'll call this lightsaber sound. And now that we got both of these, we can actually obtain both of these products. So let's save this, and if we go switch back to Unity, you'll notice when we, after doing the assemblies, if we click back here and go back to our script that was attached, you will see two blank spaces, one for the lightsaber animator and one for the lightsaber sound. So we do have the animator, and it is attached to the same object that the script is. So all we have to do is take the same object, drag and drop it. You will see it's already recognizing Obi-Wan lightsaber animator. So the animator is referring to this animator, because that's what we named the animation. Now the lightsaber sound, we need to find that sound. Let's go ahead and save this. And to get this one, we do need to go back to our Oculus Quest instructions, and I've included another link here to our list of links, asset links. This one is called Lightsaber Sounds. So this is also not part of the Unity asset library, but we can go ahead and click it and download one. So if I control click, now this is a website called Sound Bible. This is usually where I get most of my sounds. It's very reliable, it's very interesting. So we can actually preview it before downloading. So let's go ahead and give you a listen to what it sounds like. So when they have one that says lightsaber turn on. So if I hit this, we can hear what it sounds like. Sounds pretty cool, right? And then we also have one for turn off. So we do need both of these. Okay. So to obtain these, we need to go ahead and click the name. Let's go ahead and close this advertisement. Start the lightsaber on, and it gives you two options, the MP3 or WAV. So I suggest we have an MP3. So let's go ahead and download that. See, lightsaber on someone cannot be down. Keep anyways, because I do trust this site. I know it's not gonna be a big issue, so I went ahead and downloaded anyways. Okay, and let us do the same thing for off. So let's go ahead and turn lightsaber turn off. And again, we want to use MP3. So let's go ahead and click that. So we have to check it, and we want to keep it. Keep anyway. Okay, so let's just go to our download section. Let's click this button for a shortcut. So here we have our two downloaded sounds. So let's go ahead and double click it, and just to make sure it works after downloading. Okay, so that one works. And the other. Okay, so both of them work, so it shouldn't be a problem. Let's just shrink this name a little bit. Let's rename this. Just call it lightsaber on. And then this one. Okay. So now that we have both of these, we do need to import this into Unity. So let us go ahead and import it. Let us go ahead and import both of these into our Unity project. Let's go back to Windows. To do that, let us go ahead and create a assets folder. We can right click here, create a folder, and call this audio. So this is where all of our audio sounds come in. audio. Okay, so let's go ahead and double click that. And we can go ahead and import these assets by going to Asset, Import New Asset. So we want to go, it was in our downloaded. So let's go ahead and click download. And our two sounds. Let's go ahead and import it. So it did import both of these as MP3. And you can click, and this is all the information about it. Okay, now that we got our two sounds, now we want to attach it to our game object so we know when to play it. So since that sound is going to be coming from the blade, so let's go ahead and add a audio source to this. So audio source component, let's add actually we should put it to where we should add the component to where the script is. So let's go ahead, add component. Then you want audio, you want audio source. So this gives all the properties for audio source. You can change in many of these functions, these methods. So we want the first one to be, let's say, turn off. So you can see here that's the lightsaber turn off. And the output does not matter, but you do not want to play on awake. So you want to make sure that's unchecked. And loop, you don't need loop because it's not going to be looping the whole time, just when you activate the button. And all these other functions you can leave by itself. If you wanted to make a 3D sound, you can do that, but you don't need to for now. So we need to create another audio source that is for the time that we turn on. So audio source. So let's go ahead and drag this audio source in here. Say uncheck the play on awake. Now that we have both audio sources, we'll be able to connect to each one. So that's done through coding. So we need actually two audio sources. Actually, let us change this from public to just audio source. Lightsaber sound on, and then audio source lightsaber sound off. Okay, so this is already recognized, the lightsaber animator, so we don't need to worry about that. But we do need to register these two, audio source lightsaber on and lightsaber off. So to do that, we need to go ahead and address it here in start. So let's go ahead and do lightsaber sound on is equal to, so because the script is attached to the same game object that the audio source is, each of these audio source, we can just go ahead and type get component audio source. And then to do the other one, lightsaber sound off equals get component okay. Now these are both accessing audio source, but it does not know which one of these is going to pick. So later on, we're going to have to mention it by name, which one we want. So that's why we have this name here, lightsaber turn on. So in script, if we want this to turn on after we hit the button, this sound will play. Or if we shut it off, we have to use this one. So let's go ahead and save it. And you can see as we took out that public statement, if we go back to Unity, you see in the script that the audio source is gone. Let's go ahead and save this. Okay. So now that we have the audio source set up and the animator, so what we need to do now is, for this part, I'm going to actually restore and then dock this to the side. Do a Windows dock. And then dock that alongside with okay, and give it a little bit more space. So we don't need this Solution Explorer for the moment. So let's get rid of that. And let's get changes. The properties. So now we have a little bit more space. So I want this side by side with our action map. So let's open this up. And let's change it. And then we can dock side by side. So our code is going to be so now the next thing is we need to do is this action map that we created, we have to now access to our script so we can create the functions that happens when we push each of those buttons. So to do that, we need to include input action asset, and then we'll call this lightsaber input action asset. So what we're doing here is that this little this little file that we created here, that's what we're trying to access here. So that's why we need to include input action asset. So from here, we want to actually then get this whole action set up here that we set up. So we need to find this action map that's called lightsaber. So to do that, we type lightsaber input action asset dot find action map. And we have to give it the name of the action map, and the action map that we gave it is lightsaber. So we put a string of the name. So lightsaber. So within this asset that we created an action map. So it needs to search for this action map so we know that we're dealing with this. Same action map. So, but this returns something. So this actually returns an action map asset. Let's give it a name. Action map asset equals action So what it does is now it returns an input action map, and we need to end this with a semicolon. So we looked for that product for this that we created here. For this one, and from here we had to look for the action map. Now that we have the action map, so we can actually now access these actions. So let us create an action. Input action. Input action will be toggle on off, or let's call it simple, toggle action. Okay, so we have input action as a toggle action. Okay, so we found the action map lightsaber. So we found this. Now we want to access this toggle. So we can go ahead and do that. saying toggle action is equal to action map asset dot find action. So what action do we find? We put in quotes. We want this action with the same name, toggle. And then semicolon. So once we have our action, now we can register the actual toggle and untoggling of the lightsaber. So the toggle, this toggle action has actually 3 states. There's a started, there's a performed, and there's exited. So if I go ahead and show you, so just for example, let me say toggle action dot, so if we scroll down here, there's 3 events. So there's canceled, which means the event has triggered when the action has been started but then canceled. So for example, if we press the button again, then we cancel it. Or if we're holding the button to start it and then we let go, that's considered as canceled. Another one is performed. So perform is when the actual change occurs, when you're actually pressing the button or you're holding it or you're tapping. So in our case, it was tapping. So when we're tapping it, then we're actually performing this toggle action. And the last one will be started. So it's again event that is triggered when the action has been started. So right now we want it in the start method to actually start it. So this is actually, you're setting up an action, an input action. So the way input actions are handled is you want to create a method, way to access a method to, so you can actually start the actual toggling. So if we hit space and hit plus equals, okay, now we want to start the actual toggling. So let us give it a name of a method. Let's say toggle lightsaber. You don't do parentheses on this, you push semicolon. So this method that we're trying to include when we started the actual toggling, when you press the button, it's going to call this toggle lightsaber. Now it's showing error because currently in our code there is no method called toggle lightsaber, so we do need to include it. So if you're using Visual Studio, you can hover over the error, and then you can click here, show potential fixes. So click that. Then it's gonna give me some options. It says generate method lightsaber.toggle lightsaber. So it's gonna build the method here. So as you can see, it created the new method with an argument called input action.callback context object. So I don't like this object word, so let us go ahead and change it to context CTX. And we can go ahead and get rid of this. We're not throwing any exception, we want to actually write code. Now here, this is where we have to actually perform the code to handle the toggling. Now, we can do this so once we've entered in this code, so we can, this part of the code, we can create, now we can say that we're actually starting, that we're actually performing. Oh, I forget one more step. So after we created the toggle action that started, we need to actually also enable it. So toggle action dot enable. Okay, so we started it. Now we have to make sure that it's enabled. Okay, now down here in our toggle lightsaber put action, so we can use this context to find out if a button has been clicked and we have this interaction that's happening. So when we tap it, we can let us know that we're going to toggle it. So we can query if that ever happened. So if we do if context, so context meaning this is everything that's happening, all the events happening here. If context, now we're looking at the interactions. So we can type if context interactions is tap, is actually the call put tap interaction. So Visual Studio does not recognize this tap interaction, so we have to again include the library so we can show potential fixes, and we want to include this interaction. You can also do tap interaction, but if you're planning on including other interactions like the multi-tap, the slow tap, then you can import this instead. So let's go ahead and do that. So now it turned green and it recognizes. So now whenever the Unity recognizes a tap interaction, it knows to go here. Here we're going to create a code block, and we also want to do the perform action. So to do that, we need to go and do toggle action dot perform equals ctx and then an equal sign. So what this means So anytime the tap interaction occurs, it will undergo this. It will start the toggle action performed event. And it's going to access the context. And we have, so plus equals CTX. And what this means is it's pointing to a method or some code block that it's going to perform when this toggle action has been performed. We do need a semicolon here to end that. Let's go ahead and save the code what we have so far. Now what goes here, so toggle action dot perform plus equals CTX, so our context for the input action when the toggle happens. Here we want to include a method. So let us say, let's call this method lightsaber on. So we're creating a new method. And this method is going to make use of this animator, so it's going to make it start growing, and we're going to use the sound on. So let us go ahead and create that method, highlight the error, and then show potential. So we want to generate a method light sound on. Actually, so there's an error in this method because it happens to be the same name as our audio source. So let us actually change this to lightsaber on. There. So that kind of error happens when you name something similar to what you already defined. So in our case, I'm creating a method lightsaber sound on when I already have an audio source there. I want to create a method. So one of the first things that we want to do when it's performed is we want to then play this audio source, this lightsaber on. So we can do that by calling if lightsaber on dot clip dot name is equal to, so this is where we're actually differentiating between the two audio sources, like I mentioned before. So our two audio sources that's attached to our lightsaber, we have this audio source, we have this audio source. So we are differentiating between the two. So we want this one that's called lightsaber turn on. So lightsaber turn on. So if lightsaber turn on, if the clip name that we have is available, and lightsaber sound on dot is playing. So we can negate this if it's playing or not. So if it's, so by default it should not be playing. So if it's not playing, then we want to call and play it. So let's go ahead and create this. So we picked the right one, so the lightsaber sound on, lightsaber turn on, and if it's not already playing, that's what this line means, then let's go ahead and play it. Lightsaber sound on dot play. So go ahead and play it. So it will only happen that one time that we tapped. So let's go ahead and save it. We also now need an operation where it should close. So let us actually, it's very similar to this information. So let us go ahead and copy this and let us paste this code. So but this time, if ctx.interaction is top interaction, this time when it's performed, we want it off. Lightsaber is off. So we want to create another method for when it's off. So again, we can highlight the error and click show potential fixes. We want to generate a method called lightsaber off. There you go. So let's go ahead and erase this. And we want to create a similar if statement here. So let's go ahead and copy this, because we do want to play the sound, except we don't want lightsaber on, we want lightsaber off clip, and make sure that it is picking the right one by saying lightsaber turn off. And if lightsaber turn off is not already playing, we should play it. Okay. So that takes care of the actual sound, but we need to, this only takes care of the actual sound, but we actually need to set up the animation. So that's where we need to use the lightsaber anim. So let's go ahead and save this. Now to use the animator, so let's go to this. So this should also be part of the lightsaber off. Now if I go back to our animator for this, we can recall that the animator looks similar to this. Okay, by default, it's going to blade off anyways, but we want to be able to shut it off when it's on. And we have this controlling mechanism based on parameters, is on. So if we want it on, is on is going to be true. This is what we set here. And if is on is false, the opposite, then it will go back, revert to here. So we want to translate this into code. So the way to do that is we need to access that animator. This animator, we called it lightsaber anim. So we have a public of it. So lightsaber anim dot so because this is a Boolean, we want to change the state. So we would have to declare lightsaber anim plus dot set bool. So what this method does is it's going to, whenever this method is called lightsaber off, it will play the music and then it set the bool. What bool does it want to set? So we need to give it the name and a value, either true or false. So the name that we want is on. So we put that in quotes. Is on. Exactly the way it's written on the animator, the way written it here. So we want it, since it's going off, we want it to follow this path. So we said that is on has to be false to follow that path. FALSE. And we set with that. Now we have to do the opposite to when we want to actually turn it on. So again, we go here and say lightsaber anim dot set bool. Again, we only have one parameter, is on. But this time we want to set it to true. So by setting it true, it will now follow this path. And the blade on animation will start. Now this, we did not create a, or actually we've pretty much completed it. So if we save a script and then exit out of here, go back to our Unity, it will save the changes. So let's go file and save our project. Hey, and welcome back. This is Irfan again. Now we got the Obi Kenobi one sword set up with. We already have the animation, we have it colored, we have the script attached. So now is the time for us to try it out and see if it will work. We will have to export this into a file and then drag and drop it on the VR side loader so that we can test it out. Unfortunately for the testing out, we won't be able to record, but I can set up recordings to view only on the VR headset, and I will display the video in the lesson. So, to begin with, if you remember that one of the downloads that we had was the SideLoader VR. So if you have already signed up for it from this website and you download it, which I have, it will come out with a folder like this, VR SideLoader 1.14 Win. So you're going to go ahead and extract that, and then when you extract it, you get the file. So I have already extracted it, and that's and so I downloaded and installed VR SideLoader, and I happen to put it on my C drive program files, but you can put it anywhere you like. If I So we already have the SideLoader installed, and it looks similar to this. Once you set up SideLoader, it might tell you connect your device, enable developer mode, and then drag and drop your APK below to sideload it. So what will happen is once we build it and we drag and drop it, it will automatically send it to our VR headset. So we will be able to open it. So in the meantime, while I'm trying to set this up to connect the device, let's go ahead and build our project, because that takes time. So to build the project, we have to go File, Build Settings. Again, make sure the current scene is built, and we have Android. And if our device is connected, you would see under Run Device, if you click this, you will see an option for Oculus Quest 2. If not, you would have to plug in the USB and try again. And down here to the right, you have a refresh button. So it will search for it again. So I have that set up. So now all I have to do is start building. So in this folder, I can go ahead, create a new folder, call it Builds. And here I'm going to name the APK file. So it's going to be called Star Wars Mock with underscores. So if we save that, let it go ahead and build. So let's go back to here. It says we need to enable developer mode. So developer mode is found inside the VR headset. So let me go ahead and I'll tell you what it's like. I'm back here in Unity, my headset, and it was already built. So let's close this out. And it should be in the folder where design set up as builds. So all I have to do, oh, we still need to do developer mode. So give me 1 second. Let me fix that.
For you? What does that mean you have? Does that mean lava? Growth mindset! Yeah, woo! Growth mindset! Okay, here's our exit ticket. First things first, you need to write your name. Find the missing letter for who. You're gonna write that here. Circle the images that have the